to which he belonged. Much of his best work was published in Ghana's immediate post-independence period, part of which he spent in exile outside the country after President Kwame Nkrumah, whom he was close to, was overthrown. British Prime Minister David Cameron condemned the shooting, but expressed support for the Kenyan government.
Is that these appalling terrorist attacks that take place, where the perpetrators claim they do it in the name of a religion. They don't. They do it in the name of terror, violence, extremism, and their warped view of the world. They don't represent Islam or Muslims in Britain or anywhere else in the world.
2 Indians have also been confirmed to have been killed in the shooting. UN Secretary-General Mr. Ban Ki-moon condemned the attack carried out by militant group Al-Shabaab. He confirmed a former UN employee was also among the dead.
This premeditated act targeting defenseless civilians is totally reprehensible. The perpetrators must be brought to justice as soon as possible.
Earlier today, President Uhuru Kenyatta visited victims of the attack. Somali militant group Al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility for the attack while still holding many hostage inside the mall. The group says the attack was launched because they opposed Kenya's participation in a peacekeeping mission in Somalia. The dead in Saturday's assault included children, and the wounded ranged in age from 2 to 78 years old. Many were at a cooking competition when assailants opened fire on them. Well, I'm being joined on the news at 10 now by Mr. Galtima Liman, a public affairs analyst. You're welcome to the news at 10.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it's been a sad weekend in Kenya for the president personally, who lost a nephew and his fiancée, and for the rest of the world, especially those who lost people in that attack and those who are still being held hostage inside the shopping mall in Westgate. What sort of motivation could there have been for an attack like this?
There just couldn't be any motivation. Let me also join the rest of the world to also condole the families of the lost ones. It's clearly a very reprehensible attack, and it's condemnable, and certainly there is no motivation whatsoever for people who have clearly no stakes, just came in for their shopping. And at the end of the day, they face this kind of dastardly act. It's condemnable. It's unacceptable.
Yes, it's quite unacceptable, actually, because Al-Shabaab has always been confined to Somalia, and now it seems that whatever atrocities they're committing in Somalia, for the reasons which Kenya has sent troops to help with peacekeeping in the country, is spilling over to its own, across its borders.
Well, the reality is that in 2012, they've signed an agreement, so to say, with the Al-Qaeda that has a worldwide network of cells, that carries out attacks of this similar nature. We've seen attacks in the September 11, the New York attack, the Washington attack, and all these other things. But, that has been the staple of the kind of attacks that we've seen worldwide. Soft centers, people that have no expectation. You've seen the underground tube station bombing in Lagos, in London. You've also seen the passenger train that was bombing Madrid, Spain. So it's a staple of the kind of strategy that is used by terrorists to target soft centers where people are just doing their normal things, watching football, World Cup football and all that. In Uganda, they were attacked. Over 70 people also were killed, I think, in 2012 by the same group. Yes.
Yeah, but I've heard, that the attack had been quite expected for a while, and that particular shopping mall had been a major target.
Well, the grudge that they have is it's partly owned by Israelis, and their feeling is that it's not. Israel is not supportive of their initiative in Somalia vis-a-vis the kind of Islamic government that was removed, that was replaced by the UN-backed administration that is currently in place after 20 years of confusion in Somalia, ever since Said Barre left. So it's condemnable. There's just no explanation whatsoever, even though they have repeatedly said that they were going to attack Kenya for the reasons that you've adduced, that they've sent about 4,000 troops UN troops to support the administration, the UN-backed administration in Somalia to stabilize the regime. But targeting soft centers like this is not. It's clearly not a strategy that can garner kind of support from whatever cause that they want to do.
But could it have been weakness or failure on the part of the government? Because if there had been an expected attack in Kenya, you would have expected.
There's nothing you could do. There's nothing actually you could do as a developing country. When even the United States of America, you saw how they were able to infiltrate, board planes, become pilots, and then ram into the Twin Towers in New York and all that. If that could happen, and even quite recently, you've seen what had happened in Massachusetts, Boston, where some of the terrorists that came from Chechnya or somewhere, were able to shoot at a marathon, just innocent people doing their race, So there's nothing really you could do when the terrorist strategy is that of guerrilla attacks, and they can just come, strike, butcher and bolt. And that's the strategy that's been adopted by terrorists worldwide.
Yeah, but where is Al-Shabaab going with this particular attack?
You ask the question, because where are they going with this kind of strategy? The whole idea is to create this kind of wide, coverage for people to begin to ask, what is their cost? I think that's their expectation. By trying to create, horrendous kind of attacks, you suddenly find what is your cause, what do you want to do? I think basically that is the motivation of most of these terrorist activities, is to create some kind of negative awareness, as to their own cause. Their argument is that we had an Islamic government that wanted to see where we want to establish Sharia in Somalia, and overnight you've been replaced by Ethiopian-backed UN forces. We've been replaced by Kenyan-backed UN forces, and they're looking at those forces as if those forces are foreign-backed. So they're calling attention to what they perceive to be their legitimate cause. And that's why David Cameron of UK is saying that cannot be.
Yeah,
that cannot
religious group
exactly,
and so on.
Exactly.
Yeah, but how can the Kenyan government, I know they're trying to contain the situation. You still have people being held in the shopping mall. We don't know what number of people are still being held hostage right now, or what nationalities those people are. But, how can they prevent attacks like this from happening? Because they've done it once. It means that they are in the country.
You see, the reality is that handling the symptoms, these are the symptoms of a larger cause. The root cause, as I've explained to you earlier on, had to do with what is happening in their local community vis-a-vis the political calculations between the current interim government there that is backed by the UN and the government that was in place, the Islamic government that was in place. A similar situation, it's evolving somewhere in Egypt also, where you had this Morsi's government being replaced. So eventually you find people not, once they find that their expectations are not met, they go under. And so precisely this is what they have done. They are saying the Kenyans as people who are backing the UN-backed government. In current expectation is that when you say UN, it's actually strategic interest of the superpowers. And Somalia for a long period of time has been a theater of superpower calculations. You had the Soviet Union fighting it out to Said Barre's Soviet Union fighting it out with a powerful this capitalist world, the Cold War calculations, because of the strategic location of Somalia, very close to the Gulf of Aden, very close to the Indian Ocean, where a lot of this oil traffic is going on. And of recent, they've also had huge oil discoveries in Somalia. So it's a very strategic area in terms of the control of what happens, and very close to Yemen, which is also the headquarters of the Al-Qaeda.
Yes,
so all these other things are playing themselves out there in that place. The only way these issues could be addressed, as I earlier on said when we were discussing, informally, said there's a study was done by one man who wrote on a book called Taliban for 25 years.
Okay.
He said the only way it's for, he was talking globally, not only limited to Nigeria or Somalia or Libya, is to see that legitimate aspirations of the people are taken into consideration, and that is being also reflected in participatory, political process. That's the only way that you begin to deal with the fundamental issues. And once they've been seen, the political process is being seen to be free and fair, then this kind of side developments that are negative can be reduced tremendously.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Galtim Liman, for your thoughts on the matter. I appreciate your coming on the news at 10. Part 2 after the break. River State Governor Chibuike Amechi accuses Commissioner of Police of